Welcome to the Cantorbury Tales, a podcast that goes way beyond the pulpit.
A witty how-to for the voices of the people by voices of the people.
I'm Dorothy, the OG Cantor.
And I'm Nikki, the newbie Cantor.
And this is
your one-stop destination for all things Cantor.
The Cantorbury Tales. The Cantorbury Tales.
By Nikki Kaseri and Dorothy Dubkowski.
Dedicated to
Jesus and all others who wash feet, especially through song.
Table of Contents.
Welcome to the Cantorbury Tales, a how-to for church cantors and all people. A witty how-to podcast and YouTube channel for the voices of the people by the voices of the people. A one-stop destination for all things Cantor.
We'll be talking and teaching how to cantor a mass, how to rehearse, how to prepare for a mass, how to physically and spiritually lead the congregation through song, tips and tricks and rehearsal tracks and interviews with original music directors, organists, priests, cantors of other faiths, and many more.
So many
Basically, all the how-tos of how to cantor and sing in a church. And
beyond! Today, we are going to be introducing ourselves and our jams and dig right into the Psalms. Check it out and be sure to like, subscribe, ask any questions, give comments as we're happy to clarify or add helpful content. This is our perspective of being church cantors, and I am the newbie.
And I am the OG.
Oh, back to the book.
Back to the book. Okay. What happens now?
Introduction. And now we're reading the introduction of the book. Oh, aka, hi, I'm Nikki. Before we get too far, I do have a confession. I am not 100% Catholic. I know.
That's okay.
And I have a problem. But more on that later. I am going to share my personal journey and preparation as a new cantor in hope that these chronicles help you or anyone else who wants to become a cantor understand it, or is on the learning curve of becoming a cantor, or is already a career cantor, or is like a priest who just loves cantoring and singing, or maybe you're a parishioner who wants to just figure out how this works for people who lead the congregation in singing. I started a few months ago myself. I think it's, January, February, March, April, May, 4 months ago.
Wow.
Yikes. And with my own life and professional experience, research, and YouTubing whilst preparing for this new exciting job, it has been super duper enlightening and super fun.
And I have been a cantor for over 27 years.
Drum roll. 27 years. That's awesome, Dorothy.
Although I'm hardly 28 years old. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Um,
You're 21.
But I started cantoring pretty much right after college, and I've been doing it forever. It's been a really interesting experience, and I've learned a lot over the years. So when you started cantoring and started asking me questions, I was like, wow, I didn't even know this job was that interesting.
It's so interesting. I love it.
Because a lot of the things you do as a cantor, and I was raised Catholic, so it all seemed very second nature and kind of just seemed like I always wanted to do it. And so it felt very natural when I started singing in front of the congregation. I felt really like I belonged there, like I just really wanted to be there. So I'm happy to share those experiences and things that I've learned along the way, and we'll kind of feel our way through it.
I'm so excited. Also, I want to share some of the opportunities that cantoring has to offer. Just as a little sidebar, what I have realized is that every performer should understand that becoming a professional cantor can offer you many opportunities. Consistent pay, weekly performances, your storytelling. It's a professional experience where you're actually paid on the day, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in many other parts of our career as performers. There's a whole bunch more that will be in your repertoire. It teaches you time management, availability to audition during the week is there, extra pay opportunities such as singing funerals, weddings, the ability to assist and support and give hope to people on whatever spiritual journey that they are actually on or any struggles they're dealing with. It is an awesome way to worship too if you are into that, which we are.
And I just want to add that when I started, the church that I worked for did not pay their cantors.
Ooh.
Yes. So that's a little bit controversial because once you have studied singing or you're looking for work,
Right.
it's important that you, after a certain level of experience, you kind of need to get paid because then it
Right.
becomes part of what you're doing for a living. But at the time, I had just had a year of vocal school, and it was a really nice opportunity for me to learn and grow. So sometimes, just like in theater, sometimes you might take an opportunity just so that you have a starting ground.
Yeah.
And it really was, I grew for a long time before I really felt like, okay, it's okay to get paid for this now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, and what a cool opportunity too. And I know there's some churches, we're in the New York City area, so there's a lot of paid cantoring jobs here. But I know there's churches all over, the United States or the world that probably don't have, in smaller communities that don't have that funding.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they have a good volunteer program, I mean, again, it's a controversial thing. Sometimes they have ministries that don't pay. The readers don't get paid.
Right.
They're there. But when it's a skill, when it's something that you've learned, when you're expected to teach the congregation,
Yeah.
in song, which is part of what we're going to talk about today, it it is nice. You can see a difference in churches that pay and that pay well,
Yeah.
and in churches where the program is volunteer, where the level of security and confidence varies.
And professionalism
And
too.
professionalism.
And that's definitely something we're going to talk in depth about, which I'm excited. But really, let's talk about ourselves.
Okay, that's right. Introduction.
Yes. What does Nikki do in real life? I know you're all wondering what I do in real life. Well, I am a successful working performer based here in New York City. We're actually recording this in Astoria, New York, which is in Queens. This January is when I began working as a newbie cantor. So, Nikki the newbie is my nickname. I have a BFA in musical theater from the University at Buffalo. I am in Actors Equity and SAG-AFTRA and work as a performer off-Broadway and regionally, as well as in TV, film, commercials. I am a true hyphenate, and if it's creative and healthy, I want to add, now at my, my age, we have to make sure we're doing healthy work.
Yeah.
If it's a gig that's creative, that will better the world, I am in it, and I am in for it, and my heart wants to be part of it. I am a performer, writer, producer, teacher, educator, and my husband is also a working performer. And we produced a really cute, successful, fun, educational YouTube series, Maestro's Magical Music Box. And I'm also in the works for Aunt Kiki's Corner, which is another YouTube series that will be coming out shortly. These are for kids, and they're educational and fun, a la Mr. Rogers, and all come from a truly compassionate point of view in the world, which we all need more of. Anyway, check them out. And we also have a rescue pup named Sparkle, who is 3 years old and sleeping in the next room. Dorothy, tell me about you.
So I am not a theater grad nor a musical theater grad. I actually got my undergraduate degree in English education. And then I did go to, I went for vocal school for about a year, but I never finished that program. I took private lessons after that in Queens, actually.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Shout out again to Queens.
Shout out to Queens. And queens of all kinds, just saying.
All queens.
All queens. Welcome here. But in any case, I taught English for a number of years, and my real passion was theater, but I think at the time, I just wasn't ready to go for it. I was auditioning, I was doing some, small like community theater things. But in any case, I was teaching, I was directing plays, I was putting up musicals, and I was like, wow, I really want these kids to thrive, and I feel like I need more experience. And I eventually got out of that, and I landed a job as a corporate recruiter.
Nice.
Yeah, for Whole Foods Market.
Hey,
for the environment and caring about the world in every way.
Also very important to me and you. And
Yep.
should be important to everybody, yes.
And that was Whole Foods was a place where like artists and people of all kinds of backgrounds really thrived because we were all kind of there looking for something else.
Yeah.
So I was there for a long time. And then I finally got up the courage after some, sidebar experience in like dinner theater and things like that, to leave there and really pursue a career in theater. I was in California for a couple of months as an ASM, and then I came back. And when I moved back home to Clifton, New Jersey, which is where I'm from, I got a job in my church, and I had been cantoring for years, for like 15 years already. And what happened was I was just in the right place at the right time. And so my current job is not only freelance cantoring in that church and in a whole network of churches in that area, but I also am the associate pastoral musician, which means I do a lot of administrative work. But what I was hired to do is actually source out musicians to play meditations and things like that for the church. And as that sort of evolved and wound down after COVID, I'm still an administrative assistant at the church. And so that's where the majority of my time goes now. So I'm like full church, full theater.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's the best. I mean, honestly, for the jobs that we have in the church, being there more works out well.
It gives you a real background on how things operate.
Yeah.
And that's an insight that not everybody has. And it's a little eye-opening. But
Yeah,
I think we'll
course.
get to that in other episodes.
We'll keep in suspense at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway, how did we meet, you ask? Well, let's get back to that theater train. I have been in a New York City-based Catholic theater company through St. Francis Xavier Church on West or East?
It's West 15th.
West 15th Street. It's called Xavier Company. And I've been in that company since I moved to New York in about 2008-ish.
And I've been in the same theater company since about 2017-ish.
And that's how we met. And the rest is
a podcast,
a YouTube channel, a PodTubeCast, a
YouCast
channel. All right. On that note, I am going to hand Dorothy something she's never read before, and it's just to show that I'm also human. What do I like to do for fun? And she's going to read it off the cuff. Let's see what she thinks about my spare time.
Read each other's bios.
Yeah,
spare time.
Our life fun stuff. Let's see.
Nikki is originally from Buffalo, New York, plays softball in Central Park, loves teaching kids, has hung out with chimps and gorillas in Uganda, loves all animals except for ticks.
Ick.
Yeah.
Nasty.
Is an adventurer, has been skydiving. I've been skydiving. I
didn't know that.
Yes, I did write it.
You didn't write it. We've both been skydiving. Where did you go skydiving?
New Jersey skydive in Western New Jersey.
Amazing. We went out on Long Island. It was like skydive 612 or something. Maybe it was the area code. Wasn't it amazing how I could see the curve of the earth?
It was really an experience.
Amazing. God's creation.
It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
She's also been NASCAR driving, which I have not. That's very, very interesting. Swimming with whale sharks in Mexico. I've not been swimming with whale sharks, not male sharks.
I mean, I'm sure there were male whale sharks too. That was an insane experience.
Yeah.
If maybe at some point we'll post some of those crazy experience videos from our adventures.
Yeah. But I was also in Mexico petting whales on a whale camp.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where in Mexico?
In Baja, on the Baja Peninsula, it was called Baja Discovery. That's the name of the group.
Baja Discovery, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do an adventure. We'll post our adventure pictures. And works at New York City Zoos and Aquarium. And as mentioned before, has a kids music YouTube channel, Maestro's Magical Music Box.
Where learning comes alive.
Which I've seen, your live show.
Yes.
And it was marvelous. And you should check out the YouTube channel, just if I can make a plug. It's good stuff.
Thank you, Dorothy. All right, now I'm reading Dorothy's. Dorothy was born in Brooklyn, New York. 2 of the 5 boroughs represented. Well, kind of. I live in Queens, but I was born in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
So Western New York and Eastern New York represented. in Coney Island Hospital, which is why she's such a fun girl. But her family moved to New Jersey only a few months after that, so she can also call herself a true Jersey girl. Dorothy loves to travel. Both of her parents are from Poland, and she has been there twice with her family, but also loves a good car road trip.
Yes,
road
I
trips
do.
are amazing.
Trips are amazing.
Road trip. She loves to read, attend live performances of any and every kind, music, theater, dance, poetry reading, etc., etc., and loves to be outdoors, especially in the summer. Yes. No matter how hot or humid.
Hotter the better. I'm a hot and humid.
You
I know,
go, girl.
It's unusual. Everyone else is like, I need the air. And I'm
Yes.
like, yeah.
I mean, listen, I love it. I love the sun.
Yeah.
Living in New
More
York,
sun, the better.
we definitely don't have sunny winters. So bring it. Bring that sun.
Bring the sun.
And she loves a new adventure. Like this one.
Yay!
Woo-hoo! Awesome. So that's a little bit more info on the fun things, the fun side of us, but also our cantoring's super fun. So stay tuned for that. We are going to move on to, let's talk about our relationship with Jesus for a hot second.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk or you want me to?
I go first.
Okay.
So, I was talking to a priest friend of mine, and he was very excited that we were starting this channel and said, that it's very important that this job is a vocation.
Absolutely.
And so what's interesting to me about how I got started in cantoring is that my relationship with Jesus or with God has always been very positive, which is unusual for Catholics because I grew up in a church, actually where I sing right now, which taught that God is love.
Yeah.
God is love. And when I was asked, I remember my brother, when he was doing his confirmation, he had everybody in the family draw a picture of what they think God is. So my mom drew like a peace dove, and somebody else drew a cross, and I drew a big heart, and I was like, God is love, because God is love.
I love that.
And I've always felt that, and I felt that my church felt that. And then I got into college, and my friends were like, Catholics are super judgy, and Catholics are, believe that a lot of things that, that's not what you're saying.
That God is not love.
That
God is love,
God
but
is
a lot of other things too.
Right. And so, but my relationship to Jesus, to God, to my faith, I think has always been profoundly based in just open, spirited love. And and when I started singing in church, and even through different ministers of different, some more conservative, some more liberal, some more, interested in like traditional Catholic literature, others that were like, let's have a folk band and let's get the drums and the guitars in here. At the baseline of it, I feel that my mission, my vocation is to share that part of Jesus in song, and the part of Jesus that you can only reach when your like spirit is vibrating like in that musical way. So that's I feel close to Jesus. Like I feel like we walk the road together,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
God is love.
God is love.
It's interesting. I have the same view. I also feel God is absolute love, and that the Bible is a love story.
Yeah.
And this is where my confession comes in, everyone.
Oh, okay.
I was raised going to and singing in a Methodist Protestant church. Oh, my dog is barking outside the door.
Dog is surprised.
I got her all riled up by saying. So I was raised in a Methodist church, and my family bopped between Protestant and Methodist. Sometimes Catholic churches I would sing in and cantor in because I belonged to a Catholic show choir in high school. And I taught Sunday school throughout college, which many of my college friends were judgy about. They thought I should be doing other things with my time. And I was like, well, I love Jesus and I love teaching and I love church. So that's what I'm going to do. And I've been in a New York City based Catholic theater company, like we talked about, since 2008. And what's really interesting is even though I had been a part of Catholic services and singing in them and just always accepted, I really feel like by playing Mary in the Jesus show, we call it the Jesus show,
Little nickname.
Little nickname. Since 2008, I feel like this incredible bond to Mary that I did not have growing up in a Protestant Methodist church, because we just, Mary was awesome, but she wasn't the forefront of so much as I feel like in the Catholic Church she is. It's pretty amazing too, because I remember my first day. I've been playing Mary for 15 years now
Yeah.
in this company.
Yeah.
And the first day playing Mary was such a naive experience, but such a full experience because my journey knowing Jesus has been so too. But now playing Mary, I'm just like, I get you, girl. I get, oh my gosh, the struggle, the being a mom who went through what she went through and was graced with this incredible responsibility and accepted it. Unbelievable. Like my growth as an actor, knowing her and through the show, has been incredible. Anyway, enough about that. I now consider myself non-denominational Christian. So I consider myself 100% of all of the, religions. Faiths, spiritualities. I feel that living a Christ-like life, full of love and acceptance are paramount.
Yeah. I think I've always been able to make a distinction between faith and religion.
Yeah.
The Christian religions have the same basic faith.
They do.
And the differences are, for example, the Catholics follow the Pope.
Right.
The Orthodox religions have their head of their bishop or whoever's the head of their church. The Protestant religions, even in their different denominations, whether they're Methodist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, whatever, they have their own sort of governing bodies.
Yeah.
But the basis of the religion is the same. And then the other part, like you mentioned, is that the Catholics honor Mary. They don't worship her, obviously, as God,
but they honor her.
But they honor her, and it is a special relationship. It's a thing, especially for women, I think, that you can really feel connected to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
it's beautiful.
It's awesome because it is something that I was not exposed to.
Yeah.
Growing up, but it's only encouraged my spirituality further.
Yeah. And
yeah.
No, I was just going to say, and just segueing into the Psalms. The Psalms are the entire emotional body of the Bible. Like every emotion you could feel is contained somewhere in the Psalms.
Amazing.
There's fear, there's laughter, there's joy, there's terror, there's all kinds of stuff. And I think just kind of relating that back to Mary.
Yeah.
That feeling of relationship with a woman who has felt all the feelings. She feels all the feelings.
All of them.
And I, just to relate one more thing, I also learned a lot of even though I went to public school, but I went to CCD and all that. A lot of the things I think I latched onto about Catholic faith came from movies and theater.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. That's why I love the Jesus play, because I feel like it's not really called the Jesus play.
It's called No Greater Love.
The record.
And it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the story of Jesus from the Last Supper to the resurrection. It's song, dance. It's stunning.
Yeah. It's a beautiful
and it's really moving and powerful.
Yeah.
But we called the Jesus show.
The Jesus play. But yeah, and I think that being in a show is even a more intense and what's the word I'm looking for? Intimate experience.
Absolutely.
With relating to God and your faith and how you feel. It's the feelings.
Yeah. Before we take a little moment segue for music, that is so interesting that you said that, because being in the company for 15 years, showing the passion, Mary's story, we do an Advent musical about Mary. And then Whom Shall I Send, which is, we're going to start again in the fall, but that's a story of the disciples.
I call those all the Jesus.
I call them all the Jesus show.
It's like the Jesus show is like the blanket term.
The blanket term for the Xavier Company. But what's amazing is what you're saying about the Psalms and how it encompasses all the feelings. In the last 15 years doing the Jesus show, I have felt all of those feelings and related them in what was happening in real life while performing the show, the trials, the tribulations, the loss, the joys, all of that has happened in my life while doing the runs of those shows.
Yeah.
And I think what's amazing about equating those to the Psalms, those feelings that happen in the Psalms, is that every Sunday, and hopefully when people have more time, they go to church more than just Sunday, we as cantors have an opportunity to stand in front of a congregation that is feeling all of those feelings, whether it's during the day, during a week, during a month, during a season. And I feel that the way we present the Psalms can be healing.
Yeah.
It can bring peace and love. It can sometimes break your heart during certain seasons in the church, right?
Absolutely.
But what it does is it all together, we'll talk about the logistics in a second, but we're all together during the Psalms.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all, and they happen during the first part of the Mass,
Yeah.
which is a lot of people sitting and reflecting. In the second part of the Mass, the congregation participates a lot. They get up, they receive communion, they're responding to a lot of things. In the first part, it's a lot of listening. There's readings, there's the gospel, there's the homily, and we're part of that. That's our moment as cantors. What I learned is that the psalm is your moment in the Mass. Ta-da! It is your moment to
Dot, dot, dot. We'll be back after this music ad.
The Cantorbury Tales.
Chapter 1. Let's continue with talking about the Psalms. Dorothy, you were in the middle of saying, it's your moment to... dot, dot, dot.
dot, 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 is your moment to engage the congregation in a way that encompasses your entire job as the cantor. You're in that moment, you're the singer, the song leader, you're the teacher,
Right.
and you're reading from the scripture. So for you to know the importance of those words, for you to prepare them in advance is really key.
Right.
Because if you show up and you're just kind of reading the words off the page, they're getting as much out of it as you are,
Right.
which is zip. So it is a really critical, the psalm is my most favorite part of the Mass because it is our whole thing.
Right.
Not that the other stuff isn't important. The other stuff is we'll talk about in future episodes,
But it's not only our whole thing, but it involves the entire community congregation, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it involves the organist, the priest, us, and the entire congregation. And we're teaching, we're singing together, we're doing a little moment where we're hoping that we're bringing people in from whatever they're dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, you've already done, you know, the first hymn and you're hoping everyone's in there with you, but this is when they hopefully key in and make sure that what you're teaching almost in that moment
Yeah.
is resonating.
Now, I went to a little cantor school a few
So
years
proud
ago.
of her.
Thanks.
Now you know why I go to her for everything, because she is the OG Cantor.
Thank you. It was offered by probably the Newark Diocese in New
Okay.
Jersey, and they may still offer it. It was I think a 4 or 6 week program, and the first half of it was literally Psalms
Oh my
for the whole
goodness.
6 weeks. So because it's so important, because it is like the most significant thing that you can do. And the thing is, just as like an opening before we really deep dive into the Psalms, being prepared to sing the Psalms, they suggested that we purchase a Psalter, Psalter,
Okay.
which is a book of Psalms. No music, just the words of the
Incredible.
Psalms. Yeah. And that we become familiar with them so that we really can understand it. Now, I'm sure you can also get that if you own a Bible. I think you can also just read it out of the book of Psalms.
Sure.
But this way, they were suggesting that we have like our own little
Yeah.
book. And they also made an interesting comment. The Psalms are numbered.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers are significant because certain psalms are sung on certain holy days, or they're more appropriate for certain occasions. So a lot of times the refrain might be might be it might be from the same psalm, but you might be focusing on a different refrain because there's a different thing you want to repeat,
Right.
highlight at that time of year.
Right. Because some psalms are repeated
Yeah.
and in the refrain part, right? And then the part that we sing
Yeah.
will be the focus.
Is the verses that they chose, whoever chose them for that day, like chose them to reflect
on
whatever the emotion is.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And just like acting,
Yeah.
right? You want to embrace like the emotion of the psalm, but you don't want to overdo it.
Right. Because it's not a solo.
And it's not about us.
It's not about us. It's about the psalm, the lesson, the spiritual.
Yeah. And
you know,
involving
lesson.
the congregation back.
Right.
Yeah.
I also know, like, in my experience, in theater or interactive theater, and I would never equate this to the church, but I think this is an opportunity when you do the psalms to engage them in a way that they are part of something really important. The congregation, it's not just
Yes.
us singing or talking at them. And that comes back to what you were saying about it's not about us.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's about our job is to engage the congregation. We're trying to get them involved in something so that they can participate.
Right.
And that they're active in listening and in responding.
Yeah.
And like that call and response kind of a thing.
A little sidetrack. I recently was reading a book, and I can't remember the name, Playing Bigger. And it mentioned something about how people don't necessarily remember facts as much as they remember empathy or storytelling. And I think the Psalms, we could just talk this in a church, but when we're able to sing it, it reaches deeper.
Yeah.
You know, there's an empathetic part of singing the Psalms that kind of can connect us in a different way. People learn a lot through music too, but also people can sing out.
Yeah.
And you know,
I think too that they're written in poetry.
yes.
Unlike the readings, which are prose, which are
Right.
telling a story or reading a letter or advancing, your knowledge of like that part of history or that part of whatever's going on. The Psalms are an outburst of some sort of emotion.
Yes.
So if the poetry can get a little complicated sometimes.
Right.
And so if you're just reading them out, and they do during weekday masses, if there's no music, people do read them. But a lot of times that poetry can wash over people. Whereas if you're singing it, like
Yeah.
you said, you can the music can connect to you more internally. And you
Yeah.
can, even if you don't remember the specific words or you're not sure, what was that psalm about? You can still kind of get washed into the feeling of it, the spirit of it. Like,
Right.
what were we focused on that day? What was my emotion?
So quick question, and let me know if we're jumping ahead.
Mhm.
In your churches that you sing at, the responsorial psalms, do you always sing the verses as well?
We do.
Okay.
In my church, we sing, and I'll get into when we get there, I'll get into the different types of psalms that there are.
Right.
But in my church, yes, we always sing the refrain and the verses. But I have heard, I've been in churches where the refrain was sung, but the verse was spoken.
And that is what my church does.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, it's really interesting because the organist will do the introduction,
Yeah.
and then I sing it once, and then we all sing it together, and the lector reads, and then at the end of their reading, we sing it again. At the end of the next, we sing it again. So it's interesting because it is almost like spoken word.
Yeah.
And goes back and forth. And sometimes you have lectors that really dig into the emotion.
Oh, I love
And
that.
that's beautiful. But sometimes you have lectors that maybe they, obviously we don't have lector lessons.
Right.
But,
They might be singing it for the first
they
time.
might be singing it for the first time. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And some of those words are rough.
Oh my
The
goodness.
city names.
The city names. It's like,
to the people. You're like, oh my God.
Which is a lot of pressure for, someone who's just going and reading it for the first time in front of a congregation.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But that can be, I think, does your organist play a background music under the reading? Or do
Yeah,
they pull,
just a little
just
light
light.
music. Yeah,
Oh, that must be really pretty.
it is pretty.
I think that's nice. That's a
Yeah,
nice,
it's different.
nice way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes my job a little easier, but I do love listening to the Psalms when they're reading it.
Yeah. There's this might be a good time to get into the different types of psalms.
Let's
There
do that.
are.
Let's dig into the different types of Psalms.
So I think Nikki, from our conversations, is part of a church that's a bit more traditional in
Yes.
their approach to the music in general. There's more Latin in your church.
Yes.
It's a lot of Latin.
I've had plenty of Latin lessons with our friend Pasqualino Beltempo, who is from Italy. And he teaches me the Vatican's Latin.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and obviously Dorothy's gotten texts in the middle of my masses when I'm like, oh my goodness, wondering if this happens, do you do this? Or,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
a little more traditional.
Yep. And my church, the churches where I sing are a little bit more on the modern side. So I'll just run through like the different types of psalm settings
Okay.
because you can have the same words or the same interpretation of words in a lot of different ways. So, what book do you take your psalms from? Do you know? Is it the Roman Missal or something?
It is the Respondent Acclaim.
It is Respondent
Yeah,
Acclaim.
it is.
Okay.
Yep.
So, the Respondent Acclaim is a book that is published every year, and there's 3 liturgical cycles. So every year you're either in year A, year B, year C. And all that means
And it
is,
just repeats.
yeah, and then it just keeps it's on a repeat. So all that means, and we can get into it in, future episodes, but is that the readings are chosen to sort of match a specific theme or way to go. And they're maybe just slightly taken from different books. Like maybe in one year they focus more on the Gospel of Luke, but in another year more on Matthew,
Cool.
or whatever. So there's 3 Respondent Acclaim books that come out, year A, year B, year C. And every day, Respondent Acclaim gives you like the exact date of your psalm. So
It makes it very, very easy
yeah.
to get what you need out of to prepare.
And how Respondent Acclaim works is they use a more or less chant setting. So a chant, so they'll write out the refrain in a melody line, like "The Lord is my shepherd," which is Psalm 23, which is used for a lot of things. So it's that one.
The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want.
And then that's the refrain. And then the verses are written out in just like whole note form. So you're basically just reading a whole bunch of words, but there's no meter. You're not following any like
Kind of
specific-
free flow.
It's kind of free flow. And that's based on the chant form where there's just a line of music. And then underneath that is a whole bunch of verses that are marked with little accents or bold. And you kind of have to fill the words in each verse as you go. But there's a pattern. One is called a psalm tone, and one is called the Gelano tone, which is, I think, the name of the person who wrote them.
Perfect.
So Respondent Acclaim kind of follows that pattern, but they only give you the one option. So it makes it a little bit easier. It's written in, on a regular music staff. And so you can have Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd," in Respondent Acclaim, or you can have it in a more melodic verse. So my, the church where I sing, hold on, I'm just getting a book.
Dorothy bends down to pick up book.
So the church where I sing, when we do Psalm 23, we do a more melodic version. So this is written like with an accompaniment underneath it, and there's an actual meter, and it's written by Scott Crandall, and it goes, "The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want." And then the verses come in, and they're all a little bit, they're all based on the same kind of meter and the same kind of line, but it's not chanty. You can't make it up as you go along.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
decide how fast or slow you're going to say the words. And then Psalm 23 can also be the familiar tune, "Shepherd Me, O God."
Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death into light. I think I've only sung that a few times, but not in my church in the past in Buffalo.
Oh, wow.
But it's so memorable. It's so pretty.
It's so memorable.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people know that song.
Yeah.
So sometimes if they want Psalm 23, you can choose a tune that's Shepherd Me, O God, that's not written out as a psalm. It's just written out as a regular hymn. But you can use it. So there's a lot of ways. The Psalms have taken a lot of different forms. And then there are some Psalms that aren't necessarily printed in the book
Right.
that might be written by composers or might be like by special order. One of my favorites is called The Name of God. And I like it because it has a descant on top of it. So you can sing it as a duet. So
We'll have to try it.
yes. So sometimes, so what'll happen is you'll do the refrain, repeat with the congregation, sing the first verse, and then once the congregation is familiar with it, then the second singer will come in with the descant. So
Pretty.
I
That's
love that.
awesome. And I also have a favorite Psalms written by Michael Ward, who I've done a concert with of his music at the St. Francis Xavier in Manhattan. Psalms 40, Here I Am, Lord. Oh, I love that Psalms. And in one of our Jesus shows, I am lucky enough to sing his beautiful composition of this song. And let's give you a little taste of it. Why not?
Mhm.
Here I am, Lord, I come to do your will. Here I am, Lord, I come to do your will. I have waited for the Lord, and he stooped toward me and heard my cry, and he put a new song into my mouth, a hymn to our God. Here I am, Lord, I come to do your will.
Beautiful. I love that one too.
It's so pretty.
Yeah, but it's not one that everyone can handle because it's
No,
pretty
it-
rangy.
It's rangy
and I like
it's
that.
emotional.
I don't have perfect pitch, but I like that you put it in a pitch where it was like totally singable because sometimes that can get up there.
It's a good thing I didn't pick a crazy pitch. We'd be in the heights. And I am not a coloratura soprano.
Nor
I am a lyric soprano, so I can tell a great story with my voice. But
Yes, and I'm a mezzo, so
Ooh.
there's a lot of body in there, but it
Yes.
doesn't.
But
Sometimes
we don't have the cloud, the cloud notes.
the cloud. I have Mariah Carey.
No.
Yeah, I
No.
want to learn that whistle. Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. The Psalms are incredible, and I'm sure that many of you have your favorite Psalms as well. We would love to know which ones are your favorite and maybe why. And if there's any different views on how you go about the Psalms or how your churches differ,
Yeah.
we'd love to know.
And if you're wondering, just as another sort of pro tip,
Love it.
yeah. Like I said, at this Cantor school, they made a point of telling us that we should know the number of the psalm. So, for example, that Shepherd Me, O God, Psalm 23.
Right.
Because Psalm 23 is often done at funerals. That's the
Mhm.
one people request the most. Now, there's other ones that they request. Of course, the numbers are escaping me. Psalm 27, which I think is The Lord is my light.
What is the Lord is my shepherd? But what's the verse for that?
For the
Funeral verse.
yes.
I can't believe I just
my shepherd,
I shall not want.
In
In
verdant pastures, he gives me repose.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And we'll get into singing for funerals later because
yeah.
Dorothy has an incredible view on that. But like, if you have an opportunity and haven't looked at that Psalms yet, that is just a very, like grounding Psalms.
Very grounding.
Yeah.
And it's very comforting. I find,
Yeah.
and again, not to get into the funeral situation, but the funeral liturgy is really about celebrating life.
Yeah.
And so that psalm really celebrates kind of the Lord's presence in your life and longing for you to be in a comfortable place, for you to rest,
Yeah.
for you to be in his care and in his arms. It's really
stunning.
special
Yeah.
and it's really stunning. And it's done so often that you can become sort of immune to it. You can kind of be like, oh, here we go, Lord's my shepherd again. We're doing it again. We do it
Yeah.
every week. But really it's so
It's
nice
beautiful.
and so deep and personal,
Yeah,
you know?
it is.
But anyway, in front of me, I have this list of like the numbers of Psalms that are appropriate for certain times of year. So, like, for example, my book says for Christmas, you sing Psalm 98. Psalm 98 is, this is the day the Lord has made.
Yes. Joyful.
Yeah, joyful, happy. But if you ever are curious, like, let's say you're singing a hymn and you're like, oh, this sounds so familiar. I wonder if it's part of a psalm. If you look at the very bottom of the hymn, this
Tiny
teensy
writing.
weensy, you'll see the composer. There's also a hymn tune.
Yes.
So some even songs are based on the same tune. And then if it's even a verse of a psalm, they will list what psalm that's on. Like On Eagle's Wings
Yes.
is actually from the Psalms. I think it's either 90 or 91. I think it's 91.
I think it is 91.
Yeah. So that's why sometimes at one of the churches where I sing, we sometimes do Eagle's Wings as the psalm.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not conventional.
Right,
Usually you
right.
do it in some other part of the mass. But again, if it's based on a psalm, you can make a play to sing it as a psalm.
Nice. I love that.
So I'm very interested in psalms. I think there's a lot of versatility there.
So the book that Dorothy just was talking about that has the numbers of the Psalms is Handbook for Cantors, revised edition by Diana Codner. And I do have a copy of that too.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that later on in the podcast and
Yeah.
YouTubes.
And it's pretty informative, and it goes into like warm-ups and all kinds of stuff. It's a pretty good book if you're interested, and if you're interested in like making your ministry a little deeper
Yeah.
and a little more, you know, a little more layered than just like showing up and singing your
And doing the
songs.
thing.
And doing the thing. Yeah.
Which, again, this is a vocation.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because even though I was not raised Catholic, I've had my whole life, I've had, you know, my dad was Catholic, and I've been in and out of Catholic companies and things like that. And I just think it's so funny that this is what I was meant to do. It's,
Yes.
you know, and I'm totally off the topic of Psalms. Did we
We're
go
still
really
there.
fast?
We're still doing it.
I started my journey singing in general in church at my sister's baptism when I was 11.
Get out.
And my grandma was self-taught pianist, and we sang Child of God, and I was 11 years old. It was kind of crazy and terrifying. But since then, it's like I was always meant to do this.
My mom said when we went to Polish church when I was little that I was the loudest singer in the pew. And she's like, people would turn around and be like, wow, she knows the songs.
How old were you?
I mean, 3, 5.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
Baby Dorothy.
Baby Dorothy.
Oh,
But in relating that to the Psalms, singing is prayer. There's that adage, you know, singing is praying twice. But really, when you're putting your air into saying prayer, you're experiencing it in a physical way. You know, I mean, there's liturgical dance, there's the readings, there's drama, there's liturgical drama, but just singing in church and singing the words of the Psalms and these really emotional words is very, very prayerful.
it is.
And I think that knowing what they mean, taking a moment as a cantor, as a leader of song, knowing in preparation for Sunday Mass or Saturday, if you're doing Saturday, looking at the words of your psalm a couple of days before and kind of just getting it into your body, getting into your brain, maybe say the words out loud, just to know what they mean so that even the phrasing of them makes sense.
Makes sense.
You know, and you're not just kind of rote, reading word. This priest friend of mine said to me, you can't be selling me something if you don't believe it first.
Well, it's funny that you said that because in our church, there's 3 cantors. There's me and then 2 other gentlemen. And our organist and I had this conversation too.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, I'm not a set Catholic. I guess that's what you can say.
Yeah.
I've been a pet Catholic. I've had my Catholic friends call me their pet Protestant.
That's so cute.
But it is very sweet. But there are some cantors that are not of the Catholic faith that just go through it as a professional, but then they don't have the deepening responsibility that you have as a cantor, that you should be, you're right. You should be looking at the Psalms and getting into it. I get um my song list, my hymn list on Thursday,
Mhm.
and that's when I sit down and I go through the hymns and I look at the Psalms and I start to digest it. And then I digest it every single day until Mass on Sunday
Mm.
to make sure I really understand it. And even though I'm in a very traditional church, for my priest, the first thing he said when I was hired was, for us, it is most important that you enunciate
Yes.
so people can understand you and what you're saying, and that you sing with feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all about the Psalms.
Yeah. It's the Psalms encapsulate that whole thing.
Yeah.
It's everything you're doing, and you're teaching. I mean, the very first thing you do is a repeat.
Yes.
The organist plays the melodic line, then you sing it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you raise your arm and you encourage the congregation to join you. In my church, we actually announce the psalm, which is not conventional.
Oh, I like that though, because then people, if they want, they can go home and look it up and not have to.
Yes.
You
And
know?
some people do. If a person loves a piece of music, I've definitely had people come up to me after Mass and be like, where did you get that song that you sang? Can I hear that again? Or do you have sheet music to that I can look
Oh,
at?
that's beautiful.
But there's a couple of churches where I sing. Most of the time it's really, I guess, because they're following along in their book, or they can follow along with the readings. But if we're doing a psalm, for example, that's not on the same page as the readings, let's say we chose a melodic psalm from the back of the book,
Okay.
or we chose something that's not printed in their book anymore, we just have been doing it and we like it, I'll either announce the page that it's on, or I'll say our response is, for example, the Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want.
Mm-hmm.
So that because sometimes when you sing, you know how you like change your vowels and
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes people spend so much time trying to catch up with, what was that word? Was that we or way? Did she say,
Yeah. They get distracted.
that they get distracted. And so if you give them that, like, in what we do is we give them that like verbal cue so that they're past that. And
Yeah.
then when
They
the
know what
song
you said,
happen,
and then that's
they can
that's so
join.
interesting, because what I've made as a newbie cantor, with the Psalms, especially because of the call and response, I make it very clear what the word is,
Mhm.
where I'm not going to sing "ga."
Right.
I'm going to sing "God,"
Yes.
because you sing it. You have one time to sing it for people to digest it and sing it back.
And try to sing it back.
And if you are going operatic, which a lot of cantors are,
Mhm.
if your diction isn't there, then all they're hearing is vowels, and vowels are not words.
And vowels are not words, and they can't really embrace that or
Yeah.
sing along to it.
Yeah.
I think the greatest compliment I ever receive is when someone says they felt they could really sing with me.
That's incredible.
I've had people leave church and say, when you were singing, I just felt like I could sing all those notes too. And I really felt like I did my job that day.
Yes.
Like, this is what we're here for.
Yeah, we're not here to put on a show.
Yeah.
We're here to sing together and worship.
Yeah.
And we're lucky enough to lead song
Yeah.
for worship. That's awesome. And it's a big responsibility.
Yeah. And the other thing about the Psalms is that they can easily get lost.
Easily.
Because everybody's waiting for the gospel,
Mhm.
right? You do the gospel acclamation, everybody stands up, and that's the thing everybody remembers because they're the most familiar stories. And after that, they get to sit down and rest while the priest talks about his interpretation of
Yeah.
what they just read.
Yeah.
So I feel like if we can touch them with the psalm, if we can get them to like feel a part of the living, breathing Bible, of the living
Yes.
Word of God, then that really connects them in a way. And like you said, sometimes people are going through a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You come to church and you're not listening. You're thinking about the fight you had with your spouse or your neighbor, or the sickness in your family, or the money troubles you're having, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the music just moves you. It might bring you to tears. It might make you feel more connected to God. It might make you feel a bit comforted for a moment. And I think that the psalm is a place that we shouldn't just wash away. I think it should be
No.
like a real moment of importance in the liturgical space, especially because we're busy during the liturgy of the word.
Oh my gosh, so busy.
I mean, once you announce, like, you start your opening hymn, then maybe a Kyrie, maybe a Gloria, and then right into
Bam.
Psalm Gospel Acclamation. And then you don't get to rest until the Gospel.
No.
And you could finally be like, okay, now I get a little sip of water.
A little sip of water, but if you get too restful, then your voice isn't prepared for the next chapter.
Oh, which is terrifying. Terrifying.
Terrifying. Let's see. Is there anything else we want to wrap up with the Psalms? And we will probably do another episode, I think, on the Psalms at some other point because there's just so many cool things.
There are cool things to say about the Psalms. I could offer just one more little adage.
Please do.
Priest friend. And that is, you can either be a bridge or a wall.
Ooh.
So what I take to mean from that is that you can approach the singing of Psalms and being a cantor in general, which is why we started this podcast,
Yes.
to either engage your community and be part of that. Or if you're just up there for yourself, if you're just a person who's
Doing
like,
a job.
doing my job, getting my paycheck, going home,
Right.
you could literally be creating a wall. If people are there and they're just watching somebody full of themselves, singing about themselves,
Or not even in it.
or not even really in it, just kind
Yeah.
of phoning it in, they could go home that day and feel really uninspired and not connected to church. And, we're in a time period where I think we're wondering, why are we coming to church?
Right.
What are we doing here? So on
What is so important about being in church in person, especially after the pandemic?
Yes.
And this is a huge part of that.
I truly believe that music brings people in.
Absolutely.
And even if they're not singing, even if they're just listening because they don't feel comfortable singing or they don't like the sound of their voice, if they are,
Right.
if they're able to connect to it, it'll keep them coming back.
Absolutely.
And I think it's huge.
So be a bridge.
Be a bridge.
Be a bridge, honestly, in everything you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a cantor, be that bridge. Don't be a wall.
Don't be a wall. Be a bridge.
Be a bridge. Quote.
Be
a bridge. Well, that wraps up that, I think, right? Do you feel good about?
I feel good about it.
We feel good about it. We're going to segue
Yes.
on the bridge into some music or an ad. I have no idea. Let's find out. Da-da-da.
The Cantorbury Tales.
We're back.
We're back.
In summary, Dorothy and I are cool humans, and the Psalms are arguably the most important part of the Mass. Everything you do as a cantor is encapsulated in the Psalms, and that does include a lot of emotions.
Yes, it certainly does. And so let's wrap this up with a little bow and a bow. I'm Dorothy, OG Cantor.
And I'm Nikki the newbie cantor. We're super cool humans trying to make the world a better place through storytelling and filling people with hope. We love Jesus and we love cantoring. Get ready to learn all about cantoring and the world that surrounds it.
And get set for our easy to follow rehearsal tracks on our YouTube channel. Today we started diving right into the Psalms because they are arguably the most important part of the Mass.
We can't say that enough. They are the most important part of the Mass. Everything you do as a cantor encapsulates the Psalms. New episodes drop every Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Next on the Cantorbury Tales,
We will be uncovering the how-tos and the ins and outs of cantoring.
And sharing our top secret, never before seen tips and tricks of the trade. You will not want to miss this.
So until next time,
Shalom to you now. Shalom, my friends. May God's full mercies bless you, my friends, in all your living and through your loving. Christ be your shalom. Christ be your shalom. The Cantorbury Tales Podcast is created and hosted by Dorothy Dubkowski and me, Nikki Kasari, and produced by Dream Suite Films.
The Cantorbury Tales. like, subscribe, follow.